Our story begins on a farm, somewhere, and our protagonist Dagon Zio was counting dead chickens on the ground. He estimated that 100 chickens, including the little chicks, had died, leaving only 200 remaining. In a state of mourning, he knew that all he could do was bury the chickens now. After he collected the dead poultry, he started digging in the ground. While he was engrossed in his task, he hit something unexpectedly. Taking a closer look, he saw a gleaming object. He immediately bent down to grab it, realizing that it was an antique. He removed the stones surrounding it, and in the process, injured his finger. Gripping the antique, he looked at it with joy, believing that it could make him rich. Suddenly, the eyes of the antique emitted a blinding light, startling him. The light hit his eyes, causing him to drop the antique and collapse on the ground. A voice announced that, from that day onward, he was to be its disciple. The voice introduced itself as the god of poison and directed him to master supreme poison techniques to aid in future vengeance. He awoke as the sun was setting and was surprised to see the antique shattered into pieces. A woman approached, addressing him as Dagon Zio, and asked if he had been digging graves for his chickens again. She even queried if he was planning to hold a memorial service. This woman was Yuan Zhu, the daughter of Papi Zhu. She was known for her jealousy, bitterness, and evil ways. Yuan chided Zio for being able to sleep even after losing so many chickens, a fact she found unsurprising given that he was the only university graduate in their village. Zio retorted that he could hold a memorial service for her too if she wished. Angered, Yuan asked him how he dared to curse her, reminding him that his penniless parents still owed her family thousands of yuan. In his anger, Zio told her that she could insult him, but warned her against disrespecting his parents. Yuan merely taunted him, asking if he planned to hit her. She further scorned him for his lack of achievements despite his education, pointing out that no girl showed interest in him. Yuan added that it was his own fault for being born into a family of lowly farmers. Angered, Zio started to berate her but was taken aback by Yuan's aura and internal body parts. Looking at a nearby tree, he was surprised to see its internal structure as well. He wondered if this was the special ability granted by the 1,000 poison scents. He looked back at Yuan and noticed a glow from her chest. Upon closer inspection, he spotted a parasite and couldn't help but smile teasingly. Offended, Yuan covered her chest and demanded to know what he found amusing. He calmly responded that he was laughing at her impending death from poison, which she was blissfully unaware of. She dismissed his words, retorting that he was the one who was poisoned. Zio questioned if she had been feeling dizzy, weak, and experiencing blurred vision during the daytime. Yuan was taken aback and asked him how he knew. He replied that he knew everything, even her overwhelming desires at night and discomfort in her private areas. Yuan thought it was impossible since the hospital had found nothing, and wondered how Zio knew her symptoms so accurately and if she was really dying. Suddenly, Yuan clung to Zio's arm, flatteringly saying how amazing he was for knowing her symptoms just by looking at her. She asked him to confirm if he knew how to cure her. Zio pulled his arm away, stating that he could save her, but only if she begged him while on her knees. Yuan warned him not to cross a line, but he retorted that compared to her family's treatment of his, he was still being kind. He told her to think about it, emphasizing the worsening effects of the poison. She would suffer physically and mentally until she couldn't bear it anymore and might consider suicide. Yuan admitted her fault and apologized to Zio. After a shy glance around, she reluctantly knelt. Zio looked back to see Yuan on her knees and asked if he was satisfied now. He told her that since she was sincere, he guessed he would save her. He picked up something from the ground, making her question his actions. He handed her an item to eat, stating that it would suppress the poison, and assured her of a good night's sleep. Upon closer inspection, Yuan realized that the item was chicken shit. She was horrified and asked if it could neutralize the poison, accusing him of mocking her. Zio clarified that while the droppings wouldn't neutralize the poison, they would help suppress it. He added that if it worked, she should bring him 30,000 yuan for a complete cure. He explained that, technically, chicken shit contained some poison. As her poisoning was chronic, and time was of the essence, she needed to fight poison with poison. He ordered her to eat it and promised her a peaceful night. If it didn't help, she could send her father to deal with him, as he wasn't going anywhere. Unbeknownst to them, a local farmer was eavesdropping. Hesitantly, she put the chicken droppings in her mouth and began to chew, despite her disgust. Suddenly, a shout of disbelief rang out, and they turned to see a man who couldn't believe that Zhu Yuan was eating chicken shit. Later, he finished digging and burying the chickens. He thought that he needed to rest and study the new ability he had received. He proceeded to drag his rake, starting to walk, thinking that Yuan should have arrived in the village around that time, and the whole village probably knew that she had eaten chicken shit. He threw his rake away, deciding to test the strength of his ability. He positioned himself and punched the air, creating a powerful force that made a nearby plant wither, then instantly returned to its normal state. He noticed the plants withering, thinking that his ability was already quite powerful. He also thought that when fighting with others in the future, he might accidentally kill them. He then sat on the ground, realizing that the withering was likely because he couldn't control his power yet. He looked at the ground for a moment, then closed his eyes and started meditating. He knew he needed to recall that dream quickly to possibly gain more information about his ability. A minute later, he found himself back in the dream, where the god told him that all his disciples must cultivate the 1,000 poison technique, his core technique, and also the foundation for all other magical skills in that sect. The god also told him that he would be able to devour all poisons to strengthen himself, control all kinds of pests, insects, and even humans, and once he reached the peak, he would gain an indestructible body and even immortality. He was surprised to hear this. Still, the god explained to him that there were 9 phases he must achieve during his cultivation: Ming Kai, Lion Kai, He Ling, Lion Tai, Yuan Ying, Fen Shen, Gui Yi, Ru Dao, and Du Jai. Each phase was also divided into beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels. He realized there were so many phases, so he thought he better start training right away. The sun was about to rise when he opened his eyes from his dream. He had trained all night and his body felt stronger than before. He knew that his first attempt at training went well and wondered if he was in the Ming Kai phase because he could feel an obvious increase in his strength, feeling like he could take on 10 people. He closed his eyes once again, thinking that the 1,000 poison scents also had special abilities, and perhaps the see-through ability was what he had used the day before. He opened his eyes, activating the see-through ability, and looked at his arm. He saw his internal arm structure and realized that compared to the previous day, it was even clearer. Not only could he use it to see through beautiful women, but it would also be more convenient when he needed to diagnose a patient. However, he reminded himself that he was a gentleman and he wouldn't do such perverse things as peeping at girls. Suddenly, someone called him Mr. Dagon, and when he turned around, he saw Yuan approaching. He teasingly told her that Mr. Dagon sounded soothing to his heart. She told him that if he liked it, she could keep calling him by that name, making him realize that the special chicken manure had worked quite well, and Yuan had actually come to look for him so early in the morning. Yuan told him that the medicine he gave her the previous day worked really well, and all her symptoms had disappeared. She then asked if this meant she was fully recovered. He replied that it wasn't possible, the poison was still in her body, and that the special chicken manure had only suppressed its effects. If she wanted to recover fully, he would need to treat her himself. She told him she had prepared the money and asked him when he could start her treatment. He told her to transfer the money to him, and once the transaction was completed, he would treat her immediately. If it didn't work, he would refund her the full amount. Yuan searched for her phone in her purse and transferred 30,000 yuan to Dagon's account. He turned around excitedly because, after so many years, it was his first time earning 30,000 yuan at once. Then he told Yuan to come inside, and they would start the treatment right away. Once inside the hut, he stopped her, shyly asking what she was doing. Yuan shyly asked if he didn't need her to undress so he could examine her condition before the treatment. He told her she didn't need to worry about anything else and just close her eyes and give him her hand. She gave her hand to him, and Dagon explained that he was going to start the treatment and she should not open her eyes during the process, or he would refund her money immediately. She replied that she understood. He shyly held her hand, knowing that Yuan had a horrible personality, but appreciated how well she took care of herself given her smooth skin. Then he shook his head, asking himself why he was thinking such nonsense, and that a loose woman was definitely not a good person. Then he activated his see-through ability and opened his eyes. He saw Yuan's internal body and noticed a parasite in her stomach. He hadn't expected the venomous insect to be able to move around in Yuan's body, but at least he could try controlling that low-grade poisonous creature. He pointed his fingers toward Yuan's stomach, causing a sensation inside her that made her frown in pain. He guided the insect up to her collarbone, toward her arm and hand. He told her that it might hurt a little, so she should hang in there. She nodded in agreement. He moved his power to Yuan's hand and pulled the insect out of her. He caught it and told Yuan that she could open her eyes. She slowly opened her eyes and was stunned to see a wiggling insect in front of her. She shrieked, asking what he was doing and demanding that he get the disgusting bug away from her. He explained that the repulsive bug had actually come from her body and was the cause of her poisoning. He then squashed the insect, making Yuan look at it in disgust. He told her that the bug that came out of her only existed in Bullhorn Mountain, so he asked why she had been there and where her bite wound was. However, she replied that it was nonsense and that she hadn't been to Bullhorn Mountain recently. He teasingly asked her to confirm whether she hadn't gone to Bullhorn Mountain without clothes to meet someone in secret. He suggested that if it was Da Fuzhang from the nearby village, she had bad taste. She told him to stop spouting nonsense because she was meeting Pao Liu. Then she stopped when she realized something and shyly shouted at him, accusing him of tricking her. This made him think that Yuan was really naive. He told her that if it was Pao Liu from the nearby village, then the local rumors were true, which made her ask him what rumors he was referring to. He replied that the rumors said she was promiscuous and that she led a messy private life. Yuen was taken aback, but before she could reply, Dagon told her she could leave now. If she was still worried, she should go to the hospital for a checkup, and she should remember to look for Uncle Fu to bandage her wound. Yuen angrily walked away, threatening that Dagon better watch out. However, Dagon was happy, having made 30,000 yuan in one day, with the promise of earning more in the future. He was excited about the prospect of a better life for his parents and family. He even dreamt of leading the whole village to wealth. Suddenly, he noticed something on the ground. He looked closer and saw an aura. It was in every root of the trees. He realized that his chicks had been having problems due to the poisonous aura, which affected their growth. He wondered how the rest of the mountain was. Looking up at the mountain, he saw that it was full of poisonous aura. He thought it was no wonder people said that Bullhorn Mountain was cursed, and it looked even worse than his own mountain. He decided to check the mountain owned by Papi Zhu. When he arrived, he was shocked to see it was clean. It was actually a paradise. He realized that it was not suitable to raise chickens there and wondered what he should do. Suddenly, he heard a rustling sound at his side. It was a big centipede. He realized his folly. While he couldn't raise chickens there, he knew that he could raise venomous creatures, especially now that he was in the Ming Kai phase. There was also a beginner technique he could use to control venomous creatures. He thought that Bullhorn Mountain would be more suitable for raising venomous creatures, and there were more creatures there. He decided that he should find an opportunity to claim the mountain. Later, his dad informed him that his sixth uncle was the last relative to whom they owed money, and now they were debt-free. Then his dad remembered the 10,000 yuan they owed to his Uncle Zhu, but Uncle Zhu was known to be rude. Still, his dad reassured him not to worry and that he would earn more money soon, promising to handle the matter himself. He placed his hand on his dad's shoulder and suggested they should hurry, as it was getting dark and his mom must have been waiting for a long time. Later, they arrived home. Inside, they happily shared a meal together. A few minutes later, he finished eating and informed his parents that he was heading to the chicken farm, to which his mother cautioned him to be careful. The next day, the chickens squawked a good morning to the farm. But suddenly, someone kicked the gate. The door collapsed, causing the chickens to scatter in panic. It was Papi Zhu, formerly known as Jiangsang Zhu, a greedy, stingy man who held grudges and was the richest person in the village. Papi shouted for Dagon to come out immediately. Dagon, still half asleep, emerged, wondering who could possibly be causing such a commotion so early in the morning. He was surprised to see Papi rudely asking him why he was still lounging when his chicken farm was in such a deplorable state. Furious, Dagon accused Papi of ruining his farm gate and asked what the matter was. Papi responded that he'd heard Dagon was paying off debts to others in the village yesterday, and queried when he planned to repay the money he owed him. Dagon assured Papi he would return his money as soon as he could, but Papi dismissed his promises, declaring he didn't want to hear any more excuses. He then ordered Dagon to move out as soon as possible. Confused, Dagon asked what he meant by move out, but Papi arrogantly retorted, asking if he was expecting help with packing. Dagon angrily questioned Papi's motives and asked why he should move out, but Papi responded by mocking Dagon for playing dumb. He then revealed that Dagon's father had agreed to use the chicken farm as payment for the family's debt. Incredulous, Dagon told Papi that their land and chicken farm were definitely worth more than 10,000 yuan and that the debt couldn't even buy a mountain. He then asked Papi if he truly believed his father wouldn't have discussed such a matter with him first, and if he thought Dagon was that naive. Suddenly, they heard someone approaching. Dagon's mother arrived and furiously demanded to know what Papi was doing. Papi addressed Ziying Zhang, Dagon's mother, and asked why she was shouting. Papi explained to them that, as previously discussed, they would use their chicken farm to repay the debt they owed him. However, Zhang countered this, reminding Papi that he'd agreed to accept one of their other mountains instead. She then accused Papi of being jealous of their chicken farm business and trying to rob them. Papi tried to calm her and proposed a solution. He told them he'd arrange for the property deed for Bullhorn Mountain to be given to them, including their loan receipt, and he would use those to exchange for their chicken farm. Hearing this, Dagon was shocked. Papi explained that Bullhorn Mountain was larger than their chicken farm and could provide them with room to expand. Furthermore, he mentioned that if it weren't for the pressure from large corporations, he wouldn't need to take over their chicken farm. He also added that without this situation, they wouldn't have the opportunity to expand their business there. Dagon smiled at the thought, but his parents were furious at Papi's plan to use Bullhorn Mountain. Dagon saw it as a fortuitous coincidence, though, telling Papi to take their mountain, confidently asserting that no matter what animal he chose to farm, they would die anyway. Papi told Zhang that it wasn't her decision to make. Then, Dagon intervened, asking Papi if they would receive their loan receipt back if they handed over their chicken farm. Papi agreed and Dagon accepted the deal on the condition that he receive the deed for Bullhorn Mountain first. This surprised his parents. Zhang stepped forward to confront Papi, loudly objecting to the agreement, but Dagon assured his mother to trust him, promising he wouldn't let them down. He then caught his father's eye and winked, earning a nod of understanding from his father. His father advised his mother not to be angry, pointing out that their son seemed to be acting differently that day. Pappy handed over the contract to Dagon, telling him to sign and Bullhorn Mountain would be theirs. Dagon took the contract, realizing that Pappy had been planning to take their chicken farm for a while, and had prepared everything in advance. Before he signed the contract, he asked Pappy, now referred to as the deputy village head, if Bullhorn Mountain would be his once the contract was signed. Pappy confirmed this but warned him that if he failed to pay the purchasing fee by the following week, he would reclaim the mountain. He then asked Dagon if the cost was too high for him. Dagon replied it wasn't and that 10,000 yuan for 30 years of ownership was not at all expensive. He then asked Pappy if everything on the mountain belonged to him too. Pappy, growing frustrated, confirmed that everything on the mountain would belong to Dagon. Dagon responded by saying he would include that clause in the contract, just in case Pappy tried to renege on his words. He then signed the contract, handed it back to Pappy, and reminded him that the chicken farm was now his, so he should return the loan receipt. Suddenly, a voice commented on his bravery. Pappy turned around to find Yaokai, who noted he had finally arrived. Yaokai, accompanied by a group of people, expressed his disbelief at Dagon's audacity, questioning if he really was a university graduate. Yaokai-ju, Pappy-ju's son and the village's biggest bully, was also present. He teased Dagon, saying that despite his bachelor's degree, he still seemed to lack intelligence. He then thanked Dagon, claiming that without his naivety, he wouldn't have saved the money needed to build a new chicken farm. Yaokai also asked Dagon if he wasn't scared of being bitten by the poisonous bugs on Bullhorn Mountain, laughing at him and calling him a mindless peasant. Dagon retorted that it was too soon to determine who the fool was, suggesting that there might be hidden treasures on Bullhorn Mountain, which had remained unexplored for many years. However, Yaokai simply laughed hysterically, asking Dagon if he was seriously banking on finding treasure. He added that Dagon shouldn't get his hopes up, as his father had hired an agricultural expert to inspect the land and found nothing but poisonous creatures. Angrily, Dagon thought about how greedy these people were, never letting anyone else get a fair chance. He then challenged Yaokai, asking if he didn't know that experts could be swindlers. He proposed a bet to find a treasure within half an hour. Yaokai replied that he knew Dagon was foolish, but didn't think he would admit it so soon. He went on to say that if Dagon could find a treasure on Bullhorn Mountain that day, he would crawl on the ground and urinate like a dog. Dagon asked Yaokai if he was serious, to which Yaokai confirmed. However, he added a condition: if Dagon failed to find a treasure, he would have to urinate like a dog in front of him. Yaokai then turned to the crowd, declaring them witnesses to the bet, and said that if Dagon lost, they would get to see him behave like a dog. Hearing this, his mother called out to him worriedly, but Dagon simply asked his parents to help pack his things. He said he would return soon, then walked past Yaokai and the crowd, telling them to just wait. Yaokai teased Dagon, reminding everyone that he claimed to be a university graduate, and expressed his anticipation to see Dagon behave like a dog if he lost the bet. Later, in Bullhorn Mountain, he was walking through the forest, cursing at Yaokai and angrily telling himself that they should wait and see how Yaokai would end up humiliated, groveling like a dog. He felt fortunate to have inherited the god of poison's power, for without it, he would have undoubtedly perished at the scheming hands of the Zhu family. He glanced around, spotting venomous spiders and centipedes everywhere. He thought of the mountain as cursed, where venomous creatures grew much larger than what they usually encountered. However, he found comfort in knowing they now obeyed his command. He looked up, surprised to see something shining at the mountain's peak. He thought he had discovered a treasure. Activating the 1000 Poison Technique ability, he began his ascent. He leaped from stone to stone, continuously climbing towards the summit. Upon reaching the top, he hustled towards the shining object. With one last jump, he landed at the pinnacle where the object lay. He looked up, noticing a cave with hanging plants. He ventured inside, and to his joy, discovered a radiant flower growing on one of the stones. Recognizing his newfound fortune, he hurried towards it and plucked it from its perch. Studying the object, he lamented, "It's a pity. Once the ginseng's skin is peeled off, its value decreases exponentially." He noted the blight caused by Bullhorn Mountain's poisonous aura on the ginseng's color. However, he knew he could use the 1000 Poison Technique to extract its toxins. He removed the toxicity, examining it closely. He contemplated absorbing and refining the toxin to boost his power, but discarded the thought, remembering that his 30 minutes were almost up. Smiling contentedly, he told himself that Yaokai was next. Meanwhile, others were laughing on their chicken farm, waiting for his return, fully expecting him to lose. Yaokai told Linquan Zio, Dagon's father, that it seemed like Dagon wouldn't return. Yaokai then mocked Dagon's parents, suggesting they should return home and have another child to ensure someone would take care of them in their old age. This taunt enraged Dagon's parents. Suddenly, someone questioned why Yaokai was acting so abhorrently. Yaokai turned around and saw Dagon. He told Dagon that he was fortunate to escape the mountain alive. Yaokai, noticing Dagon's empty hands, arrogantly asked why he returned empty-handed and where the treasure was. Yaokai confidently declared that Dagon must have failed to find the treasure and told him to accept his defeat gracefully. Enraged by Yaokai's insinuations and insults to his parents, Dagon decided to teach Yaokai a lesson, justifying it as a necessity for being the god of poison's disciple. Pulling something out of his jacket, Dagon told Yaokai to observe closely with his dim-witted eyes. He raised the ginseng in the air for everyone to see. The spectators, including his parents, were taken aback, while Yaokai seemed utterly confused. Yaokai challenged Dagon, ridiculing the idea of the flower being the treasure. He accused Dagon of being a fool for considering such a useless object valuable. Unbeknownst to him, a fist was already speeding towards him. Pappy struck Yaokai, sending him sprawling to the ground. Dagon watched as Pappy angrily scolded his son. Yaokai, bewildered, asked why he had been hit, but Pappy simply told him to go home and check if the chickens had laid eggs. Dagon questioned Pappy about his haste, reminding him that the bet between him and Yaokai wasn't yet resolved. Yaokai agreed and questioned his father about his impatience. He told his father that he'd return home after watching Dagon fulfill the wager's humiliating terms. The spectators were amazed by the ginseng flower, declaring that the Xiao family was going to be wealthy as it was a top-grade ginseng. Yaokai, shaking with disbelief, protested that the experts had clearly stated that there were no treasures on the mountain and questioned how they could have been mistaken. In his frustration, Pappy kicked Yaokai while cursing his experts. He repeatedly kicked his son while ruining the money he'd lost. Dagon intervened, stopping Pappy from further abusing Yaokai, otherwise their entertainment would come to an abrupt end. Pappy turned to Dagon, stating as the village chief, he demanded the ginseng as it had been found on the village's mountain. Therefore, he reasoned, it should be treated as the village's public property and he should be the one to secure it. Surprised, Dagon thought Pappy shameless. Yaokai chimed in, reiterating that it was village property and should be handed to his father, the acting village chief. Dagon reminded them of the contract that clearly stated that the mountain, and everything on it, now belonged to him as per the signed agreement. Yet, Pappy arrogantly declared that Dagon hadn't paid the purchasing fee, so the mountain wasn't legally his. Dagon countered firmly, asserting that the contract had already been signed and if Pappy wished to dispute it further, they could take it to court. Pappy, realizing he wouldn't be able to justify his stance in court, changed his approach. He suggested Dagon sell the ginseng to him for 30,000 yuan. Dagon asked Pappy if he now acknowledged that the ginseng belonged to him. Pappy conceded that it was his, as long as Dagon agreed to his offer of 30,000 yuan in cash. Pappy tried to persuade Dagon by telling him that even if he tried to sell it elsewhere, he probably wouldn't get that much. Dagon appreciated Pappy's apparent consideration but declined, saying he had no intention of selling it to him. Angry, Pappy walked away with Yaokai, warning Dagon to watch his back. However, Dagon grabbed Yaokai's shoulder and told him to wait. He whispered to Yaokai, reminding him of something he seemed to have forgotten. Yaokai swatted his hand away, denying any knowledge of what Dagon was hinting at and demanded he leave him alone. Dagon wasn't surprised by Yaokai's attempt to evade, as he was prepared for it. He activated his see-through ability, catching a glimpse of Yaokai's undergarments. Teasing him about his peculiar tastes, Yaokai became confused and asked what he meant. Dagon whispered that Yaokai probably wouldn't want everyone to know what his underwear looked like. Fear crept into Yaokai's voice as he denied any understanding of Dagon's words. However, Dagon teased him further by asking if he was wearing a red bodice and black stockings. Hearing this, Yaokai froze in fear, drawing the attention of Pappy and the spectators. Yaokai fearfully asked Dagon how he knew, to which Dagon replied it was none of his concern. He started a countdown to 3, threatening Yaokai that if he didn't honor their wager, he'd expose Yaokai's peculiar tastes to the entire village. Realizing the ramifications if the news spread, Yaokai complied. He knew he had no other choice. To the surprise of Pappy, Dagon's parents, and the spectators, Yaokai-ju actually performed the humiliating act of peeing like a dog. Yaokai asked if Dagon was satisfied, but Dagon coolly replied, asking why Yaokai was in such a hurry and instructed him to bark for them, otherwise no one would comprehend his peculiar actions. Reluctantly, Yaokai barked like a dog. The spectators roared with laughter, stating the old adage that the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Pappy-ju had always been shameless, and it seemed his son was following in his footsteps. Enraged, Pappy called Yaokai a disgrace before resorting to hitting him. All the while, Dagon, his parents, and the rest of the spectators watched in satisfaction as Pappy and Yaokai retreated, humiliated. Later, in the mansion, Pappy was relentlessly whipping Yaokai in anger. Yaokai had humiliated him by revealing that Pappy had actually allowed Dagon to have his way. As Yaokai begged his father to stop, he reminded Pappy that Yuan had eaten chicken feces on Dagon's orders, yet Pappy hadn't laid a finger on her. Hearing this, Pappy's fury only intensified. He lashed out at Yaokai, bemoaning how someone as brilliant as himself could have such foolish offspring. Just then, a woman stormed towards them, demanding to know what was going on. She chastised Pappy, questioning his sanity. She suggested that instead of attacking his son, Pappy, if as competent as he claimed, should take revenge on Dagon Xiao. Yaokai was relieved to see his mother, but Pappy was taken aback by the sight of his wife. In a fiery tone, the woman declared that Dagon had bullied Yugen a few days ago and was now daring to torment Yaokai. She swore she would make Dagon pay. Pappy, cowed by his wife, hastily assured her that since Dagon had instigated a fight with them, he would retaliate immediately. As he turned to leave, his wife stopped him, questioning what he hoped to achieve by causing a scene. She expressed to Pappy her desire not only for revenge but also for Dagon's money. Pappy was puzzled, asking his wife what she meant by money. She explained that Dagon would likely sell the ginseng in the city to afford the purchasing fee. Moreover, her cousin was among the city's most influential people, and the moment Dagon set foot in the city, they could leverage this connection. She instructed Yaokai to go to his uncle's house and request some help. She ordered him to ambush Dagon when he returned from the city, overpower him, and seize his money. As long as Dagon wasn't killed, she didn't care what happened to him. With the uncle's influence, they could cover any mishaps using the money. Yaokai affirmed his understanding to his mother and immediately left to find his uncle, while Pappy commended his wife for her cunning plan. Meanwhile, in the village, Dagon placed a clean plate on the table, informing his mother that he had finished washing the dishes. He planned to head to Bullhorn Mountain for a quick look. Jang, his mother, was confused. She questioned why he was returning to the dangerous mountain when he had just come back from there that morning. Dagon explained that he had been in a hurry earlier and hadn't taken a thorough look. He wanted to plan for the mountain's future. Jang reminded him to be careful and inquired about when he planned to go to the city to sell the ginseng. Dagon responded that he would go the next day, especially since they still needed to cover the 10,000 yuan purchasing fee. He reassured his mother and took his leave. Jang was proud to see her son becoming increasingly responsible. Later, on Bullhorn Mountain, Dagon was surprised to see many people digging. He wondered why there were so many people and was concerned about the mountain's many dangerous creatures. However, he was taken aback to see a young lady and an old woman there. He observed the lady in pink, Kyoxia, from a distance. The old woman, who appeared to be with Kyoxia, scolded her for making a fuss over a matter that didn't concern her, reminding her that she was not Dagon's wife. Kyoxia retorted, stating that Dagon was the owner of Bullhorn Mountain, and they couldn't just dig around without his permission. Undeterred, the old woman brushed past her, insisting that it was none of Kyoxia's business. Stepping forward, Dagon asked everyone what they were doing there. The old woman casually responded that since he was the new owner of Bullhorn Mountain, which had been left barren for years, they thought he might need help tilling the soil. The crowd concurred with the old woman, asserting their good intentions. Dagon silently chastised them as shameless. He suspected they were only there because they wanted to find a ginseng for themselves after seeing his. However, he also knew that if someone got hurt, he would be held responsible. Nonetheless, he thanked everyone for their assistance but warned them about the venomous creatures inhabiting the mountain. He emphasized the dangers of the strong poison, which could be lethal if they were attacked, urging them to leave for their safety. However, the old woman angrily retorted, accusing him of trying to scare them away. She claimed to be his sixth aunt, reminiscing about how he had drank her milk as an infant. She also reminded him that the money he used to build his chicken farm was borrowed from all of them. Now that he had found a way to get rich, she accused him of trying to abandon them. The crowd agreed with her, warning him not to forget his debt to them. Kyoxia spoke up, defending Dagon and rebuking the old woman for crossing the line. The old woman teased Kyoxia, accusing her of constantly siding with Dagon, and insinuated that she was trying too hard to win Dagon's affections, even calling her a flirtatious child. Dagon was livid at the accusation, questioning how the older woman could behave so vulgarly. The old woman then approached Kyoxia, pointing out her blush and teasing her even further. Dagon, coming to Kyoxia's defense, grabbed the old woman's hand, rebuking her for her filthy language and actions. Suddenly, Kyoxia cried out in pain, startling Dagon. He saw Kyoxia on the ground, her foot swollen from a bite, and recognized it as the mark of the venomous blood-rotting plum scorpion. The crowd was suspicious, wondering if Kyoxia's reaction was just an act to drive them away. Enraged, Dagon ordered them to leave Kyoxia alone. He told them that if they wished to get rich, he wouldn't stop them. But if they dared speak ill of Kyoxia again, they would regret it. Dizzy and weak, Kyoxia told Dagon she thought she was going to faint. He reassured her, promising to treat her immediately. As he examined the wound, he confirmed his initial fear. It was indeed the venom of the blood-rotting plum scorpion. He knew that once the venom spread and a plum-shaped mark appeared on the victim's body, with 4 black petals turning red, not even divine intervention could save them. Dagon activated his unique ability to see through objects and was relieved to find that the venom hadn't yet reached Kyoxia's heart. Just then, the old woman shouted, pointing out a large scorpion crawling towards them. The crowd, fearing they might get stung too, fled the scene. Once they were alone, Dagon quickly killed the scorpion and turned back to Kyoxia. He told her he was going to suck the poison out, despite her protests, that it might harm him. He assured her of his strength and proceeded to extract the venom. Kyoxia was in pain, but she also felt grateful. No one had ever cared for her as Dagon did since her parents passed away. Finally, Dagon managed to remove the poison. He asked Kyoxia how she was feeling. She thanked him, saying she felt better but was still a bit weak. Dagon explained that her body was likely exhausted from fighting the poison and reassured her she would feel better after resting at home. He was taken aback when he saw her fall asleep. Wondering if she had really fallen asleep, Dagon gently lifted her onto his back, preparing to carry her home. As he began to walk, he thought about his feelings for Kyoxia. After he had made more money, he decided he would confess his love to her. The following day, he was on his bicycle, heading toward the city. He touched the ginseng in his pocket and hoped that he could sell it for a good price, then happily continued his journey towards the city. 2 hours later, he arrived at Newfound Pharmacy. He had checked online yesterday and found that Newfound Pharmacy was the biggest pharmacy in the city, and it was also the city's largest wholesaler of Chinese medicine, so he believed there should be no problem selling it there. He walked inside the pharmacy and noticed a seemingly bored Dr. Jingbing Shen at the front desk. He greeted Dr. Shen and mentioned his intent to sell some high-quality medicinal herbs, inquiring if they could discuss it privately. Dr. Shen looked surprised to hear about high-quality medicinal herbs and regarded him with disbelief. Shen wondered how a seemingly unsophisticated kid could possess such valuable medical herbs. After a quick glance around, Shen told Dagon to follow him, thinking that there was no harm in just taking a look. Behind the shelves, Shen asked Dagon about the high-quality medicinal herb he intended to sell and instructed him to present it. However, Dagon questioned why they were having the discussion there instead of in a private room. Shen explained that the private room was currently occupied and suggested that Dagon just show the herb there. He warned that if Dagon didn't want to show him, he'd leave. Dagon hesitated for a moment but slowly reached into his jacket pocket and revealed the ginseng, asking Shen for his opinion. Shen was surprised to see it and immediately snatched it from Dagon's hand to take a closer look. Shen asked him when and where he'd found it. Dagon replied that he dug it out from the mountain the previous day and asked Shen to tell him how much it was worth. Shen commended him for his luck, but admonished him for being careless when he picked it up and breaking its roots. Shen sighed and asked if Dagon was aware that once a ginseng's skin and roots are damaged, its value significantly decreases. Dagon replied that he understood and urged Shen to just tell him the price. Shen assured Dagon that he seemed trustworthy, so he wouldn't take advantage of him. He then offered him 30,000 yuan. Dagon was frustrated to hear the offer of 30,000 yuan again and protested to Shen that the ginseng was over 100 years old. Yet Shen was only offering him 30,000 yuan. He demanded to know if Shen thought he was naive or a child. Shen warned Dagon not to be greedy and asserted that the offered amount was the best he could provide. He added that other people would likely only offer 10,000 yuan at most. Shen was pleased with the situation, believing he had found a naive person on his first day of work. He planned to take the ginseng and disappear, confident that since no formal procedures had been followed, no one would be able to track him down. Dagon angrily asked Shen what he was implying and demanded that he return the ginseng since he had decided not to sell it. However, Shen told him that since he had approached him, he had no choice but to sell it now. Dagon was infuriated and asked Shen if he was planning to coerce him into selling it. Frightened, Shen backed away and asked Dagon if he was intending to start a fight. He then shouted for security and falsely claimed that Dagon was causing trouble and needed to be removed. Dagon retorted that not only was Shen forcing him to sell his ginseng, but he was also falsely accusing him. As the security guards blocked him, Shen ran away with the ginseng, calling for help and claiming that Dagon was threatening him. Dagon moved past the guards, demanding they step aside, and grabbed Shen's coat. He lifted Shen up and furiously questioned where he was running to. More security guards rushed over and surrounded Dagon, telling him to release Shen or face serious consequences. Dagon snatched his ginseng back and slammed Shen to the ground in his anger. The head of security angrily questioned how Dagon dared to assault Shen and ordered his men to subdue him. The captain attempted to attack Dagon from behind, but Dagon effortlessly dodged him. Dagon was simply contemplating testing his abilities and considered the security guards suitable test subjects. The captain remarked that Dagon must have had some training, but insisted that as long as he was present, he wouldn't tolerate Dagon's insolence. When the captain attacked again, Dagon avoided him easily and told the captain he was too slow. He reached out to the captain and lightly poked his side, causing the captain to shout in pain and collapse to the ground. Dagon commented in disbelief that the captain had attempted to help Shen when he was merely a clown. The remaining guards called out to their incapacitated captain and lunged at Dagon, who easily dodged all their attempts. He then grabbed one of the guard's legs and announced his super whirlwind cartwheel technique, swinging the guard around to knock over the others. After he tossed the guard aside, he dusted off his hands while the stunned nurses and doctors watched from behind. He picked up Shen from the ground and held him up, asking if he really thought he could just take his possessions so easily. He rummaged in his pocket and placed something in Shen's mouth, telling him he was going to let him try something special. Shen coughed and asked what Dagon had forced into his mouth. Dagon replied nonchalantly that it was just a poisonous pill he had crafted in his spare time. Then, he placed a shaking Shen on the ground and asked how many people he, with his twisted morals, had harmed that day. He then promised Shen that he was going to teach him a lesson. A few seconds later, Shen felt something coursing through his body. Suddenly, he started scratching himself uncontrollably, shouting that it was an unbearable itch. He scratched his face relentlessly as Dagon commented on the effectiveness of his creation, deciding to name it Bitten by a Million Insects. He then asked Shen if he didn't think the name was fitting. Shen, now in a pitiful state, bent over and apologized profusely to Dagon, clinging to his legs and begging for an antidote. He asked Shen to admit his wrongdoings. Shen confessed that he shouldn't have tried to cheat Dagon or framed him, acknowledging that he was scum and pleaded for the antidote. A doctor nearby realized that Shen had been trying to force the ginseng from Dagon, while a nurse deemed Shen's behavior shameful. Dagon laughed and acknowledged that Shen had learned his lesson quickly. He also informed Shen that there was no antidote, leaving Shen dumbfounded. Suddenly, a voice boomed through the pharmacy asking about the commotion. The doctors and nurses were surprised to see their boss. Dagon turned to see a large man looking at them. The man demanded to know why the security guards were on the ground and ordered them to get up. The captain explained that Dagon had caused a scene and had struck their doctor, but it appeared the situation had escalated because of the actions of a new doctor, Shen, who had tried to force Dagon into selling his ginseng. The man was enraged and exclaimed that such behavior could ruin the pharmacy's reputation. He demanded to know which Dr. Shen was involved. A doctor explained that Shen was a practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine from a nearby village who had started working there recently. The man demanded to see Shen and stated he would deal with him personally, but a nurse informed him that Shen had run off to the hospital. The man ordered the security guards to find Shen and bring him back. He then apologized to Dagon and promised that such an incident would not occur again. Dagon replied that it wasn't a big deal and that it wasn't the pharmacy's fault, so they should just forget it. As he turned to leave, the man asked if he could inspect the ginseng and assured Dagon that he would offer a fair price if the quality was good. Dagon agreed, and the man pointed to his office where they could discuss it privately. Inside the office, the man speculated that Dagon must have recently found the ginseng in the mountains. Dagon confirmed this but warned the man that if he intended to offer 30,000 yuan, there was no point in further discussion. The man seemed taken aback and commented that Shen had been incredibly greedy. He assured Dagon not to worry, explaining that unlike Shen, he was an honest businessman. He then inspected the ginseng and confirmed that it was indeed over 100 years old. Dagon requested that the man offer a price since he recognized the ginseng's worth. The man admitted that he had recently met someone searching for a 100-year-old ginseng, and he was willing to offer an initial price of 200,000 yuan. He then asked Dagon what he thought. Dagon was shocked to hear the figure of 200,000 yuan and began to sweat with excitement. He had never seen so much money in his life. The man noticed Dagon's reaction and admitted that the price might seem low, but because the ginseng's skin and roots were damaged, 200,000 yuan was the best he could offer. Dagon responded that he found the price of 200,000 yuan acceptable but requested the full payment immediately. The man agreed and asked if Dagon had WealthPay, a mobile payment service through which he could transfer the money instantly. After their transaction was successful, Dagon was still in a state of excitement as he looked at the considerable amount in his account. Suddenly, a doctor burst into the room, startling the boss. He asked the doctor what had happened and why he was panicking. The doctor reported that an individual had arrived at the pharmacy, claiming that the medication had driven them mad. A man, shouting, demanded to know who would dare to make such a claim. He then ordered the doctor to lead him to this person. Following the doctor, they traced the commotion to its source. The man was stunned to see someone tearfully telling her mother how much she missed her. Dagon peeked around a corner to see a lady hugging a trash can, pleading with her mother to take her along while two suited men stood nearby. One of the men spotted them and furiously ordered a man named Wang to acknowledge his daughter, who he claimed had gone mad after taking their medicine. Wang inspected the lady closely and saw her sobbing uncontrollably. He apologized to the man, Jiang, who was the president, and assured him not to worry, promising to examine his daughter's condition first. Wang checked the lady's pulse and informed the president that it didn't appear as though little Mei's condition was caused by their pharmacy's medicine. Jiang, in a fit of anger, grabbed Wang by the collar and demanded to know what he was suggesting and whether he was trying to deflect responsibility. Jiang then warned him that if anything were to happen to his daughter, Wang would pay with his life. Wang assured Jiang that they would accept full responsibility. As they were conversing, Mei swayed, and they heard someone shout a warning to her. They turned to see Mei about to collapse. As Jiang cried out his daughter's name in alarm, Dagon managed to catch her just in time, prompting sighs of relief from Jiang and Wang. Dagon informed them that Mei seemed to have passed out, but he expressed surprise upon noticing a mark on her back. Upon closer inspection, he discovered a web-like pattern, leading him to speculate whether Mei might have been bitten by an Arctic black widow. Dagon announced that Mei had been poisoned and that the poison would soon take effect. If they didn't begin treatment immediately, it would be too late. He urged them to carry Mei to a room quickly so he could save her, but Jiang questioned his knowledge. Dagon retorted impatiently that there was no time to explain and that they should follow his instructions. Jiang heard murmurs from bystanders suggesting that Dagon was merely pretending he could save Mei to extort money. People seemed to think there were so many swindlers around these days. Jiang ordered Dagon to let go of his daughter and leave, but Dagon seriously asked Jiang if he wanted his daughter to die, incensing Jiang further. Jiang furiously instructed Fu to eject Dagon from the scene. Fu obeyed, attempting to seize Dagon by the shoulder and pry him away from Mei. Dagon firmly grasped Fu's hand and hoisted him up, leaving Fu stunned. He then slammed Fu onto the ground while still cradling Mei. The crowd was shocked at the sight, and Wang admonished Dagon to stop messing around, reminding him that treating a patient was not a joke, as lives were at stake. Dagon implored Wang to let him save her, as time was running out. If anything were to happen, he pledged to take full responsibility. Jiang angrily questioned who Dagon thought he was, and how he planned to take responsibility if anything happened to his daughter. Dagon, remaining calm, asked Jiang if his daughter kept a pet spider that was white with gray patterns on its back. Jiang confirmed this and asked how Dagon knew. Dagon explained that it was a venomous spider native to cold, snowy environments, and considered a rare creature. Those bitten by it had very low chances of survival. Wang told Dagon that enough was enough and he should leave. Ignoring this, Dagon pulled down Mei's clothing, causing Jiang to panic and question his actions. Wang also attempted to stop him, but both he and Jiang were shocked when Dagon carefully extracted something from Mei's clothing. He revealed the spider, and the crowd realized he was telling the truth. He explained that after an Arctic black widow bites its victim, initial symptoms include profuse sweating, fever, and hallucinations. However, the victim's condition would soon deteriorate, leading to fainting, loss of consciousness, and ultimately death. Seeing the spider, Jiang was furious and snatched it from Dagon, who warned him that an average doctor wouldn't be able to treat her, but he could. Jiang squashed the spider angrily on the ground, shouting that he should never have allowed Mei to keep such dangerous pets. However, Dagon intervened, stopping Jiang from damaging the spider's web. He explained that once the spider had bitten someone, it would leave its web in the victim's body, and if the thread was broken, the toxin would mutate instantly, causing death within minutes. Jiang, in a panic, asked what they should do now and whether they could still save her. He pleaded with Dagon to save his daughter. Dagon yelled at Wang that they still had time, and they needed to take Mei to a room immediately. He also required some silver needles. Jiang instantly ordered Fu to fetch the silver needles, to which Fu immediately complied. They rushed to the room and gently laid Mei on the ground. Dagon unzipped Mei's clothing, but Jiang watched him silently. After fully unzipping her clothing in the back, Dagon took out a pack of needles and expertly flicked them around, shocking Wang. He then grasped the needles swiftly. In a flash, he plunged the needles into Mei's back, infusing them with an energy that surprised Wang. He hadn't expected that Dagon knew how to use the legendary aura acupuncture technique. Wang prompted Jiang to observe his daughter's complexion. Mei moved her eyebrows slightly and let out a small sound. Seeing this, Dagon removed the needles, exclaiming that it was done. Jiang, anxious, asked his daughter how she was feeling. Dagon glanced at his hand, musing that after drawing out the poison from Kyaxia and helping the young girl recover from her poisoning, it seemed that his 1,000 poison senses could soon level up. He speculated that he might start seeking out poisons to ingest himself. Mei slowly opened her eyes and locked gazes with Dagon. She looked shocked, then slapped Dagon hard, calling him a lowly scoundrel. Jiang intervened, telling her that Dagon was the doctor who saved her life, so she should apologize to him. However, Mei challenged Jiang, asking what kind of father would allow a pervert to undress her and then tell her to apologize to him. Dagon was confused and told Mei that he wouldn't make a fuss about her hitting him after he saved her life, but he questioned how she could treat her father so disrespectfully. Mei, growing angry, demanded to know who had asked him to save her. She told him to mind his own business and let her die. He was annoyed by her response, but Wang helped him up, telling him that it was a family matter and it wouldn't be appropriate for outsiders like them to comment on it. Wang then told them to step aside, stating he would prepare some medicine to aid Mei's recovery. They opened the room door and were met with shocked faces. The people couldn't believe that Dagon had genuinely saved her and thought it was extraordinary. Mei, however, simply walked past everyone. Jiang thanked Dagon for saving his daughter and explained that she was born with such a disposition, so he sincerely apologized for her disrespect towards Dagon. When Jiang asked where he was from, Dagon handed him a card, introducing himself as Dagon from Dae's village. Jiang apologized once more, promising that once Mei felt better, he would bring her to visit Dagon and thank him properly. Dagon told him to go after his daughter. Wang thanked Dagon, acknowledging that if it wasn't for him, his pharmacy would have been in serious trouble. He offered to treat Dagon to a meal in gratitude and asked if he was free. However, Dagon declined, explaining that he had pressing matters to attend to back home and would have to take his leave. Wang seemed disappointed but agreed. As he left, he told Wang to seek him out if he needed anything in the future. While Dagon was on his way home, his phone notified him of a transfer of 50,000 yuan from Wang. He sighed, continued pedaling his bike, and shouted joyfully that he now had enough money to purchase Bullhorn Mountain. Later, he halted his journey when he heard a commotion nearby. A man was berating a girl, telling her she should pay him back rather than cry in the street. Dagon was taken aback when he recognized the voice. He excused himself from the crowd to inspect the scene, hearing a woman admonish someone to rise and cease pretending to be weak after merely receiving a few slaps. He was stunned to find a broken phone on the ground and Yuan berating Kexia Huang for its destruction. Yuan accused Kexia of intentionally bumping with her out of jealousy for her new phone. Kexia, having received multiple slaps, insisted it wasn't intentional. Yuan grabbed her collar, demanding to know what she would do if she hadn't intended it. Could she just walk away? Dagon interjected, demanding Yuan to cease her actions immediately. Yuan, surprised to see him, asked why she kept running into him. He pulled Kexia away from Yuan and curtly told Yuan to leave. He asked Kexia if she was hurt. She replied she was fine. But he grew furious when he saw Kexia's face swollen from Yuan's slaps. He rebuked Yuan for treating a fellow villager so brutally, to which Yuan retorted if he was attempting to protect Kexia. Believing she was fully recovered, Yuan felt no fear. She scornfully called him a worthless individual who couldn't find employment post-university, and failed even at basic poultry farming when he returned to the village. She scoffed at his attempts to defend Kexia. The crowd deemed him a drain on government resources despite being a university graduate. Undeterred, Yuan claimed Kexia bumped into her and questioned why she shouldn't demand payment for her phone repair. Dagon warned her not to forget the itching sensation she experienced at night. If he could cure it once, he could bring it back. Yuan retorted, asking if he wasn't afraid her day would come. He merely reminded her of the humiliation she and her brother had faced due to his actions. Yuan was taken aback by the revelation that he made Yaokai behave like a dog. Dagon cleared his throat and asserted they had strayed off topic. He inquired about the phone's cost, offering to cover it for Kexia. Kexia protested, but Dagon assured her it was all right. Yuan, suspecting Dagon of flaunting his wealth before Kexia, disclosed it was an 18,000 yuan limited edition phone. Could his destitute self afford it? Kexia pointed out that she saw Yuan buying the phone for 4,000 yuan. Dagon queried if it truly cost 18,000, to which Yuan affirmed. He promised to transfer her the money via WealthPay. Yuan received a transfer of 18,000 yuan from Dagon Xiao. She wondered how he had such substantial funds, and despite her inflated price, he didn't hesitate to pay. Yuan stated that since he paid for Kexia, she wouldn't persist on the matter. They should never speak of it again, she declared, preparing to depart. But Dagon stopped her. Even though he had paid her, he clarified that it only addressed her broken phone. Her assault on Kexia was an entirely different issue. He reasoned that since Kexia had broken Yuan's phone and they compensated 18,000 yuan for it, Yuan should pay for Kexia's medical expenses. He further stated that he would decide on Kexia's behalf and proposed a figure of 180 million yuan. The spectators were astounded, commenting that he was duping Yuan and must have overworked his brain during his studies. Yuan demanded to know if he had lost his mind. She had only slapped Kexia a few times. Did that warrant such an astronomical medical fee? She called Dagon a madman as she turned away, ordering the crowd to make way. Dagon calmly declared that if she refused to pay, he wouldn't play nice. He then unveiled silver needles he had obtained from Wang and hurled them towards Yuan. The needles struck behind Yuan's knees, halting her progress and surprising her. She collapsed to the ground, causing the crowd to panic and exclaim that she was kneeling. Yuin, in a frenzy, questioned Dagon about her condition and why she couldn't move her legs. Dagon told her to remain calm, explaining that he used the needles to seal her blood vessels and paralyze her lower limbs. Yuin angrily reached to pull out the needle, but Dagon cautioned her against it. He warned that if she removed the needle, she would be permanently crippled. He was the only one capable of safely extracting it. Yuin was fearfully surprised by this revelation. She pleaded for Dagon's forgiveness, acknowledging her fault. He stated that he could forgive her, but only if she allowed Kyoxia to strike her as she had struck Kyoxia. Yuin was taken aback. Kyoxia pleaded with him, expressing her willingness to forget the incident. Yuin begged for his mercy, deeming herself worthless and seeking release. Dagon praised Kyoxia's kind nature but insisted on teaching the heartless Yuin a lesson. Since Kyoxia declined to strike Yuin, he would do it himself. Yuin tried to negotiate, but Dagon warned her not to delay. Her legs could become irreparable if he didn't remove the needles soon. Enraged, Yuin bit her lip and slapped herself hard. Dagon commanded her to apologize to Kyoxia while self-flagellating. Yuin repeatedly slapped herself, apologizing and confessing her misdeeds to Kyoxia, while Dagon demanded her to strike harder. Yuin continued to hit herself while loudly admitting to being worthless, evil, and heartless. She begged Kyoxia for forgiveness. Kyoxia implored Dagon to stop, and they should leave. Yuin stopped her self-harm, but her face swollen from the punishment. Dagon declared he would stop for now, having taught her how to behave like a proper human. Yuin pleaded for him to remove the needles, since Kyoxia was no longer upset. Dagon, however, turned to leave, causing Kyoxia to ask about Yuin's legs. Yuin reminded him about her legs, but he admitted he was bluffing. The needles could be removed without any consequence. Yuin was shocked and enraged. She tried to confront him but was cut off by a sudden eruption of blood from her mouth, caused by her own slaps. As people called for an ambulance, Dagon and Kyoxia departed. Kyoxia queried Dagon about his techniques and how Yuin was paralyzed. Dagon reminded Kyoxia of his medical background from university. He used acupuncture to immobilize Yuin, but she would recover once the needles were removed. Kyoxia praised him, promising to repay him soon. He informed her he had sold some ginseng and wasn't in urgent need of funds. She could repay him when she was able. He then inquired why she had come to the city. She answered that she needed to repair her phone, but didn't expect to run into Yuinju so soon. Dagon suggested they skip the repair and buy a new phone instead, pointing to a Huiyu mobile shop. He took Kyoxia's arm and led her towards the shop, despite her protests. Meanwhile, somewhere, Yaokai inhales his cigarette and tosses it to the ground, joining the other discarded cigarettes. He tells the man beside him that his sister just called. She said that Dagon is on his way back and will probably be there soon. The man, swarmed by mosquitoes, assures Yaokai that Dadu has been positioned to watch at the intersection. This time, Dagon won't escape. The man, growing increasingly frustrated by the mosquitoes, catches one and squashes it. He mutters curses under his breath, blaming Dagon for his current predicament as mosquito fodder. He swears that he's going to make Dagon suffer. Yaokai calls the man Leopard and instructs him to ensure that Dagon pays for the distress he caused his parents. Leopard confidently promises Yaokai that he will certainly follow through on his orders. Suddenly, someone shouts out to Leopard. It's Dadu, announcing that Dagon has arrived. Relieved, Leopard inhales his cigarette and, with a smirk, flicks it to the ground. He calls his comrades to action, telling them that it's time to get to work. On the other hand, Dagon is happily riding a bicycle with Kyoxia. Suddenly, he is taken aback to see Yaokai and his gang waiting for him with bats. Dagon stops, and Yaokai confronts him. He sarcastically calls Dagon the golden boy of their village, mentioning that he heard Dagon went to the city to sell his family's ginseng for a large sum. Dagon admits that Yaokai is well informed and wonders if Yuin was the informant. He confirms to Yaokai that he indeed sold the ginseng for 250,000 yuan, but clarifies that it wasn't their ginseng, it was his own. Enraged, Yaokai accuses Dagon of being shameless and threatens that if he wants to live, he should transfer all the money to him. Otherwise, once his men get riled up, not even he will be able to stop them. Kyoxia points out their baseball bats, but Dagon reassures her, promising to handle the situation. He proudly claims that he can defeat these weaklings effortlessly. Leopard retorts that the last person who defied him is still in the hospital and threatens to send Dagon there as well. Kyoxia, terrified, warns them that she's recording everything. She threatens that the police will catch them, but Leopard only mocks her, even expressing his perverse interest in her. Leopard tells Yaokai that once they're done with Dagon, he wants Kyoxia for himself. Yaokai dismisses him, stating that he's not interested in village girls. Leopard then makes a vulgar comment about recording his time with Kyoxia, which angers her. She calls him a shameless bastard and promises that he will pay for his actions. Enraged by Kyoxia's words, Leopard spits on her. Dagon and Kyoxia are taken aback. Dagon, filled with fury, swings a punch at Leopard. Leopard is surprised to see Dagon's fist near his face, and before he can react, he's hit hard. Dagon sends Leopard flying towards their van. Leopard's comrades call out to him in concern, but they're shocked to see him smash into the van, damaging it severely. Dagon then dismounts his bike, and Yaokai watches the scene in disbelief. Dagon furiously cusses at the gang, who in response charge towards him, swearing to teach him a lesson. Dagon swiftly turns and attacks the two men, leaving only one man standing. This man, too, collapses to the ground, much to Yaokai's shock. Dagon then slowly approaches Yaokai, who is trembling with fear. Suddenly, Yaokai turns and runs, shouting for help. But he slips and falls, knocking out a few of his teeth, which bounce off the ground. Despite his pain, Dagon is repulsed by Yaokai. He orders Yaokai to stay put, promising to deal with him later. He then walks towards Leopard, who is still lying next to the van. Dagon stomps Leopard's leg, breaking it. Leopard screams in pain. Dagon then asks Leopard if he now knows what pain feels like. He reminds Leopard that it was payback for the disgusting comments he made about Kyoxia, but then asks him how he plans to make amends for spitting on her. Leopard, terrified, addresses Dagon respectfully and apologizes profusely. He begs for mercy, citing his family as a reason, but Dagon merely stomps him again, breaking more of his bones and causing Leopard to howl in agony. Dagon asks Leopard again how he plans to pay for spitting on Kyoxia. Desperate, Leopard suggests that Dagon should spit on him. Amused, Dagon agrees to Leopard's proposal. He uses a technique called Thousand Poisons to amplify the effects of his spit. He then spits on Leopard's face. Leopard screams as the spit sizzles on his face. Turning his attention to Yaokai, Dagon approaches him, asking why he seems so terrified. He reminds Yaokai of his desire for Dagon's phone. Yaokai quickly denies wanting it, but Dagon insists on gifting it. He tosses his phone into a filthy sewer, telling Yaokai that he can retrieve it himself. Yaokai pleads that there's no need for him to do that. He makes up an excuse about his mother calling him for dinner, but Dagon isn't swayed. He forcefully orders Yaokai to retrieve the phone or else he'll leave a mark on his face, just like he did to Leopard. Yaokai continues to beg, explaining that he needs his good looks for his livelihood. He's already lost his front teeth and can't afford to have facial scars. Dagon, ignoring his pleas, kicks Yaokai towards the sewer, ordering him to cease his whining and jump. Yaokai falls into the sewer, landing face first. He accidentally swallows the filthy water and struggles to breathe. He cries out for help, claiming he can't swim. Kyoxia voices her concern that Yaokai might drown, but Dagon assures her that he can hold on for a while. He then walks towards Leopard and orders him to get up, warning him not to pretend to be unconscious or he'll spit on him again. Leopard tries to calm him down and pleads for a peaceful discussion. Dagon orders Leopard to bring his men and Yaokai to him. Leopard hastily agrees and instructs his gang to retrieve Yaokai from the sewer. After a few moments, they finally drag Yaokai out of the canal. Dagon notes with satisfaction that Yaokai managed to retrieve the phone. He tells Yaokai that he'll let him off this time after his quick bath in the sewer. If Yaokai dares to provoke him again, he won't be as lenient. Dagon orders Leopard to stop assisting the Jew family in their misdeeds, assuring him that if he does, his scars might even fade away in a few years. Leopard quickly agrees, promising that they won't help the Jew family again. He commands his gang to express their gratitude to Dagon, which they do obediently. Satisfied, Dagon tells Kyoxia that they should head home. As they ride back to their village, the gangsters look on in fear and respect for Dagon. As they ride, Kyoxia leans her head on Dagon's shoulder and praises his bravery, asking how he became so powerful. Dagon smiles and reveals that he's been learning kung fu from an old man for several years. However, his skills are still not perfected. He promises that once he fully masters his martial arts, he'll be even cooler and stronger than he is now. The couple continue their ride home, chatting happily about Dagon's kung fu training. Well guys, that's the end of the video. If you like this video, comment part 2 in the comments section. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell and like the video. Thank you for watching and see you next time again.